Compared to the high standards Mercedes have set themselves, they've been appalling this year. Compared to the normal expectations of a Formula 1 team, they've been excellent. It really depends on your point of view. Something that isn't debatable though is that they've improved massively since the start of the year. But have they improved enough to beat Red Bull in the remaining 2 races? I know a lot of you might think they may have, but we aren't so sure. Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin says the team's downturn in form at the start of the 2022 season came as a bit of a shock to Lewis Hamilton. The team became the dominant force in Formula 1 when the sport introduced its V6 hybrid turbo power units in 2014. It won all 8 Constructors' Championships between 2014 and 2021, during which time its drivers Hamilton and Nico Rosberg won 7 titles. Over the same span, Mercedes won 111 of the 160 Grand Prix held, with Hamilton accounting for 81 of them to become Formula 1's most successful ever driver. With the introduction of new ground effect cars for the 2022 season, however, Mercedes fell behind Red Bull and Ferrari as they struggled with excessive aerodynamic porpoising and bottoming out with their aggressive W13 chassis. After the first 20 of 22 rounds this year, Mercedes are currently without a race win, have taken only a single pole position in Hungary with George Russell, and are on track for their fewest podium finishes of the V6 turbo era. For their fans and team boss Toto Wolff, that isn't acceptable. Despite Ferrari's strong start to the season, Mercedes have been catching up to them since the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Ferrari looked to be guaranteed second place in the constructors' standings, but that might be changing. Mercedes is currently lying in third place in the overall standings, 40 points behind its Italian rivals. While the runner-up slot would be a good end result to a year that started with such difficulties, Wolff says that he would actually prefer it to round off the season with a victory rather than stepping up a Constructors' Championship position. The win would be proof that our car is back to fight for wins, he said, when asked why he felt that way. P2 could also be because the others dropped the ball, and you're just scoring more points. While Wolff would not be against overtaking Ferrari in the points table, he says that the better judge of the team's progress is how its car is performing on track. It would definitely be some consolation, because Ferrari had the quickest car at the beginning of the season, he said about the runner-up spot. Finishing ahead of them would be great, but again, it's not our main priority. The main priority is to understand the car and have a quick automobile on the track. Mercedes had 2 of its best chances of the year to grab that win in the recent United States and Mexican Grand Prix, but tyre strategy choices compromised its chances on both occasions. With only 2 races left, Mercedes are running out of time to regain their winning ways, but there are those who are confident they can do it. Just to be clear, we aren't one of those people. David Tremaine said in his official Formula 1 column, "As it was, Mercedes thrashed the Ferraris. But does this all mean that Mercedes will be in the fight with their 2 rivals in the final races? That's one of the delicious conundrums now that the championship titles have been settled in Max and Red Bull's favour. I'm still expecting Max to increase his new record of 14 wins and 416 points in a single season, but it's nice to think we might see a pair of 3-horse races to end what's been a very one-sided year." David is sensible to not say that Mercedes will win one of the remaining 2 races. That would be almost embarrassingly overconfident. But he did think that the advantages that Mercedes had in Mexico would help them take a win in Abu Dhabi or Brazil. Unfortunately for David, we think he's wrong, and the Mercedes team agree with us on this. Mercedes strategy director James Vowles expects his team to have a tougher time at the Formula 1 Brazilian Grand Prix than it did in Mexico, with Ferrari bouncing back. Vowles says that an update package introduced at the US Grand Prix and then completed with the new front wing in Mexico was also a useful boost for the Brackley team, but that it won't be enough to secure them the race win their fans so badly desire. "We're very good when we are running maximum downforce and others running maximum downforce as well, and that was evident in Zandvoort, in Budapest for example, and it was no different in Mexico. In Mexico, everyone really was running their maximum rear wing, the maximum amount of downforce that they could get away with." Mercedes' only pole position of the season came at Zandvoort, but neither driver could match Max Verstappen on race pace, and it was Max again in Budapest who pipped them both. Mercedes did get a 2nd and 3rd place finish in Hungary, but they were aided by another trademark Ferrari implosion. Vowles admitted that it was hard to predict form for the final 2 races. "I think this will really vary track on track," he said. Ferrari won't be that far back and away from us as they were in Mexico. They'll be closer in Brazil and in Abu Dhabi, and it will be a very close fight between our two teams. In terms of relative to Red Bull, they still hold the edge relative to us. I don't think it's quite the 3 tenths they outqualified us by, but it will be a few tenths across the next few races. Sure, Mercedes may have pulled themselves back into a legitimate battle for second place, but they had been helped by Ferrari, something we'll get onto shortly. Fighting Red Bull, specifically Max Verstappen, for race wins is still out of the question. Wolff might be thinking about a race win, but he's giving the fans false hope. He's always been partial to hyperbole, and claiming his team can beat Max's RB18 in a straight fight is definitely more fantasy than reality. James Vowles has set his sights a little lower. It's very clear what our internal goal is, he said. We're here to finish second in the championship, and every single race that we can start pulling that points cap down is a success. So, what about that help from Ferrari? I'm guessing you think I'm about to talk about their strategy choices and their unreliable engines, and I definitely could. Both of those things have gifted Mercedes plenty of points this season. This time though, I'm actually going to talk about development and how Ferrari have let Mercedes catch up to them in the latter half of the season. Ferrari F1 team boss Matteo Binotto has played down Mercedes' upturn in form, putting it down to the German team's rapid rate of development. Ferrari enjoyed a significant performance advantage over Mercedes up until the summer break, but have struggled since Spa. Speaking after the race in Mexico, Binotto insists he's not concerned by Mercedes' mini resurgence due to the differences in car development this season. Mercedes is coming back, Binotto said. They've developed more on the car than we did. We know as well we stopped the development of our car quite early, focusing on 2023. So I'm not too concerned by the rate of development because I know as well when we stopped developing. Ferrari have known for a long time that Charles Leclerc wasn't going to win the Drivers' Championship. They put a brave face on for the media and mathematically, he could have still won it for a long time, but the writing was on the wall by the season's halfway point really. Silverstone might have given them some hope, but by not pitting Leclerc behind a late safety car, they basically gave up their last sliver of hope. Mercedes have been bringing significant updates to their car all season. Even in Mexico, with just 3 races left, Mercedes were messing about with their whole aero package. Those kind of updates are expensive. The technical specifications are changing next season, and if these updates aren't as compatible with the new regs as Mercedes think they will be, then that is money they could have been spending making the 2023 car more competitive. I'm sure the fans would prefer the team to be winning races in 2023 rather than coming second and third to Max for the final few races. 2023 should be Mercedes' real target, especially considering how far behind Red Bull they are. Wolff has previously revealed that a single decision taken in October 2021 was the root cause of the deficit Mercedes have had in 2022, and believe that while Red Bull have the upper hand, Mercedes will return to the front. With all the talk of changing the DNA of the car, we are about 85% sure that the suspension is to blame, but that's for another video. Toto said, Red Bull certainly have an advantage, but we believe that we understand where the gap comes from, he told the media. Red Bull will carry over some of the sweetness in their car, and we've maybe lost 8 to 10 months in terms of development, because we couldn't figure out what was wrong with our car. I would love for Mercedes to pick up a race win this season. For the sake of the sport, we need a team that can compete with Red Bull. But unfortunately, by the team's own admission, that isn't going to happen. 2023 is the real target now. Want to know more about what's happening in Formula 1? Then click the link on your screen and I'll see you there.